disorders.
And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world, Mr. Mark. Thank you, everyone. So today let's talk about your book itself, right? Radical honesty. Why telling the truth is the fastest way to transform your life. You claim that lying is the major source of human stress. If that's true, why does honesty often feel so much more stressful than the moment than comfortable lie?
Yeah, in alcohol use disorder and substance use disorder, dishonesty is inherent in the malady. So we say we're only as sick as our secrets. And the key to recovery and life, for that matter, is becoming more comfortable with discomfort. Just like in Buddhism, Buddha meant awake and he taught suffering and the end of suffering. So that suffering of getting out of your comfort zone actually ends the suffering, makes you more aware, and gives life more meaning and purpose. So it's critical to tell on yourself. One is only sick as their secrets because the judgment of the executive decision of the frontal brain becomes obscured and foggy when there's addiction. And the fight, flight, or freeze, which is fear, becomes the overriding part of the system. So honesty is really the first step.
Indeed, honesty is the best policy, as they said. The book suggests we build self built jails through withholding truth from those close to us. What's the most common jail you've seen people construct? The lie they will tell so often that they forgot they leaving behind it.
Yeah, so this malady, one becomes sick and makes others around one sick. It's a conditioning so that the others around this person with the malady do not know how to treat them. They're sick and tired of dealing with them. They have fear and anger and resentment. So that's how others get sick. And then this notion of jail or imprisonment, one becomes a slave to this substance or alcohol because the brain gets hijacked. It's not necessarily a moral failing or a weakness or one's fault. No one wanted to become have an alcohol use disorder, and I try not to say alcoholism, or have a substance use disorder, and try not to say an addict. No one planned to become that. It was just that they began using things for escape or entertainment to relieve boredom, and the brain, the chemistry of the brain, basically overrode the desire to keep it moderate, where the body and the habits and the emotional operating system felt that it needed it.
Beautifully articulated. Mr. Mark, you distinguish between the mind and being in a culture that rewards constant evaluation ourselves, of others, of every choice. What would it actually look like to live from being instead?
Yeah. So when one gets honest, especially with this type of malady, there is an awakening. There is a shift in thinking. As a matter of fact, uh, Dr. Carl Jung, who was a psychiatrist years ago in Switzerland, he felt like that was necessary to address addiction, a spiritual awakening. Now, this awakening is not religious, it's just something where one comes to terms with one's soul or inner flame, whatever you want to call it, that one is sick and tired of being sick and tired. They want to return to their original flame and how energetic it was, um, and to get rid of these substances that are sort of clouding or um, actually killing the host.
So, Mr. Mark, one reader described truth telling in your framework as means of humbling yourself or leaving behind a simple sweetness. Is that sweetness at the goal, or is just a byproduct of a life lived without hiding?
Yeah, so this humility i- is really explained as being where you are, being where your feet are, exactly where you need to be, not a loser, a failure, not any sort of grandiosity. So this humbling is a shift and an awareness so that our ego isn't driving the bus, which is basically puffed up self, wanting more, thinking we know all the answers. And when one gets honest, one can become humble, although that exercise of humility is one of deconditioning and reconditioning, because that's not really in the lexicon, in the language of someone who's been sickened by drugs and alcohol.
So, Mr. Mark, you position your work within tradition stretching from Plato and from the Bible to Emerson. Did any of these thinkers give you a particular courage to write this book, knowing how controversial its practical applications would be?
Yeah, so in researching my books, this one and my initial one, The Great American Suburban Experiment, about my story in Hollywood and my challenges with addiction. Uh, I would always, because I had been a screenwriter, doing a lot of research and citing and having a bibliography, which my books have. And in that, I researched many different people: Viktor Frankl, Ralph Waldo Emerson, um, theologians, spiritualists, philosophers, Albert Einstein, uh, to really bring clarity and truth to my message. And humans are very malleable over the course of history, and there have been many great thinkers who have inspired us and given us clarity in getting closer to the truth. So, yes, the teachings and the practice, the daily practice of these great thinkers has provided me with skills to articulate this experience and to share it with others and to motivate them into recovery.
Yes, to recovery indeed. The exercise of writing down all one's secrets is described by one reader as producing things that sounded hideous and twisted, like they had been decaying in the dark for too long. When you ask readers to do this, what do you tell them to do with the surface besides simply acknowledging it?
Yeah, so throughout the course of history, every spiritual discipline has had some sort of accounting of the soul. Um, in Judaism, with which I'm the most familiar, it's called the Chesbon HaNefesh. And the Nefesh is the soul, and this is sort of an accounting of it. And even in 12-step programs, and peer recovery teaches all pathways of recovery, not just Alcoholics Anonymous, 12-step. We do medically assisted treatment, harm reduction, Buddhist recovery, secular recovery, smart recovery, many different things, that this exercise of writing things down, it's actually called the fourth step in a 12-step program, and getting it on paper as introspection and evaluation to heal oneself and work on maybe instincts gone astray, is to write these things down. Um, I've always been full of myself. I've always been nervous. Um, I've wronged others. Um, I've resented others. I've stolen from others. I've lied to others. And that list is critical. And then the exercise is, that list is shared with a mentor, a spiritual leader, a sponsor, a peer recovery specialist, and to begin evaluating the source of those instincts gone astray, um, character flaws, and and usually they result in fear, or they stem from fear, losing something, fear of something, um, getting angry at someone, less expectation, less performance. It all stems from fear, because humans are coded for survival. We're not coded for love and empathy. So that humans are in a constant state of fight, flight, or freeze, which is the sympathetic nervous system. So again, to answer your question, that's a big step in writing, searching one's soul and doing an accounting, as one would do an accounting of one's business, of assets and liabilities. Otherwise, businesses can go bankrupt because they're not operated efficiently and effectively by evaluating, you know, one's inventory, one's stock, and it really is an inventory of oneself to write these things down. Yes. For some reason, I've lost the audio
Yes.
from you again.
Okay,
There you
so
are.
here we go. Mr. Mark, critics says your approach lacks of nuance. That is shock program that could damage relationships. How do you respond to someone who's been hurt by honesty, weaponized by someone who read your book and use it permission to be cruel?
Yeah. So again, in the 12 steps, the eighth step for growth and change, and the people who devise this, you know, at least Bill Wilson, was called one of the greatest social architects of our time by the great thinker Aldous Huxley, is that after going through these steps of change, the eighth step is making a list of who we've harmed or done ill to. And one makes the list. It could be a wife, some spouse, or sibling, or boss, or friend, or children, and how that harm was done. Then it takes a careful look at it in the ninth step with a mentor, a spiritual leader, a sponsor, to evaluate those folks who have been harmed and how they were harmed, and then to strategize whether or not to approach them and how. And the step speaks of this, making amends, actually getting that relationship current, not necessarily apologizing or saying someone is sorry, but revisiting that relationship. Um, should not happen if it's going to harm others. So a sponsor mentor might say, okay, These first three people, good. The seventh and eighth person and persons, maybe let's hold off on, because that might hurt them at this stage. And the honesty is really is recognizing and taking ownership of one's actions. For example, the instructions are to contact a person, the person who one wants to make amends with and get honest with, to say, may I make an appointment or come see you to make amends? And they may want to know what that is. And say, let's not get into it. If you allow me to see you, I'll come see you. And it's a sit down, live sit down. And one could say, um, hey, John, I realized that I was really inappropriate and may have stolen your time and some of your possessions. At the time, I was under the influence of drugs and alcohol, in the throes of this sickness, and I really want to own up to that and take responsibility for that. And I know it was because of the things that I did, and I'm going to try really hard not to have them happen again. And that's basically it. And whether or not the person responds, I forgive you, or it's no problem, that was a long time ago, or get lost, I'll never forgive you, or our relationship is ruined and we can never amend that. The exercise is one that one has done that for themselves, and taking care of one's own side of the street, and then one is not in control of anyone else's response, and that acceptance and surrender is key in doing this exercise.
Very well said. Very well said, Mr. Mark. The chapter on wellness prioritizes living from the body. For someone who spent decades feeling crap or crumpled, as one reader described, what is the first physical sensation they should learn to trust?
So you're asking physical sensation when using substance or stopping substance?
When you're stopping something, which
When
is related to your book.
when taking something, yes?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So um, people often try alcohol, you know,
Hmm.
and the effects are um, loss of any sort of inhibitions. So one can not be as afraid, and speak things that one ordinarily wouldn't speak. One tends to become more relaxed. The frontal brain and that decision making and all of those things, it begins to quiet. There's a physical feeling of being loose and greasy, smooth, and one can feel elated. So the brain chemicals at baseline are here. Things like dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, oxytocin. One goes out to dinner or plans a vacation or goes on vacation, actually the dopamine goes higher when one plans a vacation than when one is on vacation. However, when one drinks the alcohol, the dopamine, those chemicals go way up. So one can feel elation, sort of a false sense of joy, but that's the feeling. And then after a few drinks, um, the participant usually gets tired and wants to go home and go to bed. However, others who have a different brain, they get energized the more they drink, and they continue to drink, and some don't have an on-off switch. So that's really alcohol. And then others may want to experiment with cannabis, marijuana, and that too brings dopamine levels high. It has a relaxation effect. It has different effects, and So cannabis, alcohol, then there are opioids, narcotics, which some people's brains see, everyone's different. So everyone responds differently, chemically, emotionally, physically, to these substances. One may like alcohol, and one may try an opioid even for pain relief, and detest it, get nauseous from it, do not like the effects. One may take opioids and love the effects. They're calming, they bring clarity, they bring a warm blanket. Amphetamines or something else, cocaine, methamphetamine, Adderall, Ritalin, Vyvanse, these are speed, they're amphetamines. So different substances elicit different reactions in people. For instance, I was addicted to benzodiazepines, Valium, Xanax, Ativan, and they energized me. Most people take them, they relax, they get out of that anxious state or panic, and they feel sleepy and they go to sleep. For me, it had the opposite effect. So I think the answer to your question, Daniel, is everybody's entirely different, how they react to different substances.
So, Mr. Mark, to wrap up our discussion for today, at the very end of the book, after all the exercises and provocations and challenges, what's the one truth you hope every reader tells themselves in the mirrors and has courage to believe?
Yeah, I think one of the keys to recovery is becoming more comfortable with discomfort. So that means when one is uneasy or feels anxious, it's that habit of trying to take something to feel better or different shouldn't be acted on. One should feel the discomfort, know it's okay, e- especially when getting honest and doing things that are uncomfortable, so that we're deconditioning that response and learning to be more comfortable with life's intensities, as well as the absence of substance to change that feeling.
So, Mr. Mark, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom. Can you please invite our listeners to support your book, your business, or wherever you want to promote on Book 101 Review?
Yeah, so my book can be found at Amazon around the world, and you can see the book, and it's called Radically Honest: 10 Peer Recovery Stories. It's various stories of how people got sick from substance use, and how they came to believe that something could help them, and they allowed that to help them, and my interaction and different techniques with them to help them in recovery. So that is on Amazon. And also, I have a website. It's called go-humans.com. Go Humans, but it's go-humans.com. And that's really a celebration of humanity and triumphs. And right now, it's dedicated to recovery, addiction, and recovery. And my mission is to spread this to different medical doctors. This technique of peer recovery, of one person with lived experience helping another, is unparalleled, to doctors and other, medical professionals who might not know about this, to learn about it and get access to it in every state in America. And I don't know, where the world stands on this, but it can be very powerful.
Well, Mr. Mark, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for having me.
Marty, come people, see you soon.